Salamastarba. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our regular session with Pamela. Pamela is going to talk about teaching pronunciation. Welcome, Pamela.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to
You can
you.
share your screen.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are at pronunciation. So this is some rules, general rules, and then some tips on how to teach pronunciation. So we're going to talk about the regular rules and then some exceptions. I will have major examples of exceptions, but not all of them, obviously. And so if I'm going quickly, maybe you can take a screenshot or you can watch this again and take notes because it's going quickly. And of course, I send this to anybody who asks. So if you want to email me or I can give this to Manas so you can have it to reference because the rules are very kind of longer. They have a lot of information. So first we're going to talk about general ideas about pronunciation with English. English is a stress-timed language. That means that certain syllables take longer than others in a word. So we're not talking about sentence stress, we're talking about word stress. We'll talk about sentence stress a little later, but word stress actually changes the meaning of a word depending on where you put the stress in it. So let's look at two syllable-timed languages, which mean that every syllable gets the same amount of time. It's not one longer, more stressed, it's more even. So let's, for example, just the basic word university. University. So this one has one main stress and then secondary stress. So the main stress, first let's talk about how many syllables are in the word university. So I clap this with my students, university. And sometimes I'll hold up my hand and I'll count on my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I won't tell them 5, but I'll hold up the fingers. And so then I ask, where is the stress? On which syllable? So university. It's on the third syllable. Is there a secondary stress? Is there one that is a little bit stressed, but not as much as ver? Yeah, university. University. So there's a longer time dedicated to the ver, a little bit longer in the u. Let's compare this with, it's pretty much the same word in French and Spanish. Spanish is universidad, university, universidad, universidad. So if you see that, if you can hear, it's the same amount of, it's not universidad, it's universidad. In French, université. So if we see in some of those languages, those are just two examples, it's more evenly spaced. So stress is really important in English, particularly because we have words that the stress changes the meaning of the word. So for example, if we have record, where it's 2 syllables, the stress is on the first syllable, record, that's a noun, that's a thing. Record, it's spelled exactly the same way, but by pronunciation, you'll know that that's the verb. Record, noun, record, verb. The same with suspect. If the stress is on the first syllable, it's the noun, suspect. Suspect, that's the verb. Increase, increase. Same thing. Import, import. Discount, discount. Contest, contest. Permit, permit. conflict, conflict. And then this one is just one that is, it's not a noun or verb, but it's something I hear even with native speakers. We often have to clarify what we are talking about. 15, 50. So this is with also 14, 40, and 19, 90, you know, all of those, the teens and then the larger numbers can be a little tricky sometimes. So even though there is an N at the end, sometimes even native speakers will have to say like, oh, he'll be here in 15 minutes. I'll say, what? 15 or 50? Say, oh, 50, 50 minutes, 50. Oh, 50. Okay. So this is one example of sentence stress and why syllable stress and why it is so important to pronounce these words correctly. And the way that I like to do this on the board, if I had the board here with you, I would show you, but I put a big dot with often a different color than if you are writing with white on a blackboard or with black on a whiteboard. Put a different color chalk or a different color marker if you have a whiteboard, and put a big dot over the stressed syllable and small dots over the unstressed, just so that they can really see where to put that stress. And sometimes, you know, you clap with it, or I knew another teacher who punched the air with her fists like a boxer for the stress. She would punch during the stress. So anything kind of physical, and they can do it too, that you can add into drilling these and really linking the visual of what it is spelled like, where the stress is, and how it sounds. Okay, so English, there's a lot of Asian and I believe some African languages that are tonal, where the tone denotes the meaning rather than the context. So in English, the tone denotes connotation and not denotation. So one of the main ideas, one of the main examples we can give for this is, and this is the same in many languages, at the end of a sentence, if it's a question, your voice will go up. So the question mark, is he here yet? You know, it goes up. That is tone showing context. That is tone showing the meaning, that the tone changes the meaning of the words or meaning of the sentence. So for example, changing stress to change the meaning. I like Japanese food. So Japanese, this is as an adjective in a normal sentence that you're just giving the information. I like Japanese food. Japanese, right? But if you want to stress something, if you want to make emphasis, you are correcting somebody or you are focusing on one particular thing to focus on the meaning. So you are correcting somebody, they say, oh yes, I know him, he speaks Chinese. And then you can say, he doesn't speak Chinese, he speaks Japanese. So the stress changes because you are emphasizing something. You want to put extra attention onto Japanese because you are comparing it to Chinese. So that's also a different example of a difference in meaning with tone. These are all aspects of natural speech that you will want to practice with your students. So here's an example of one sentence with 7 meanings. So we'll go through this here. So if I stress the first word in this sentence, I don't think he should get the job. That means somebody else thinks he should get the job, not me. I don't think he should, but someone else does. If you say it, the stress on the second word, I don't think he should get the job. That means you're saying it's not true. I don't think he should get the job. So you're saying something different. You're actually giving different information just by stressing a different word. The third one, I don't think he should get the job. That's not really what I mean, or I'm not sure he'll get that job. I don't think he should. I'm not sure. I don't think he should get that job. That means someone else should, right? She should get the job. You're stressing that. I didn't get the stress here, but I know where it is. I don't think he should get that job. So that means it's wrong that he's going to get it. I don't think he should get that job. The next one, I don't think he should get that job. That means he should have to earn it, not just somebody gives it to him. He hasn't put in the work yet to earn it. I don't think he should get that job. That means he should get another job. Not that one, a different one. And I don't think he should get that job. Maybe he should go to school instead, or maybe he should retire, something else. But this is depending on what information you are focusing on, you will be making that word stronger. This is something maybe for a little bit more advanced students to drill. You'll want to introduce this later, but be aware of this early on, especially when you are doing listening, because listening exercises are great for just really having the students be exposed to natural speech, natural pronunciation, natural intonation, natural rhythm, cadence. All of that is going to be part of what they need to really understand as they go forward in learning how to say more things, adding to their vocabulary. So this is one of the main things that is kind of tricky in English, is when do we pronounce ed in the simple past or sometimes as an adjective, and when do we not? And when we don't, how do we pronounce it? So for these letters, so this is the one that I'm saying maybe take a screenshot or look at this again and take some notes. If the verb ends in B, G, L, M, N, R, S, V, W, Y, or a Z sound, then you want to put the D there, and you just say the letter D. You don't add a syllable. So we wouldn't say robbed, we say robbed. We say engaged, called, maimed, canned, scared, loved, enjoyed, realized. So we have both spellings, the British and the American. Realized, they both have the same pronunciation. Phased and showed. Okay, so that's how we want to pronounce those, with those letters that are at the end or with an E. So for example, love has an E after it. Rob does not, but we want to show that these are the ones that just have no extra syllable. If it's one syllable like rob, it stays one syllable, robbed, robbed. If it's two syllables like engage, it stays two syllables, engaged. Okay. The next one, we add a little T sound to verbs that end in these or with these with the E afterwards. So C, F, GH, which makes kind of like an F sound, TCH, which makes a ch, K, P, QUE, SH, SS, and X. So here we also do not add an extra syllable. We keep it at just one syllable. So trace and traced. So it's just a T, even though it looks like a D, it's just a T sound. Surfed, laughed, liked, stopped, critiqued, dressed, fixed, washed, switched. So this is the rule for those letters, having it be more like a hard T. So the ones that, oh, this got off a little bit. The ones that end in T or D do take an extra syllable. So this is the rule, Ted is dead. And we know dead is spelled wrong here, but this is just to remember it. It either is DED or TED that will take the extra syllable. So words like awarded, landed, recorded, ended, scolded, succeeded, needed, decided, started, suggested, interested, created, painted, chatted, accepted, wanted. Those are the ones that you add the different syllables. So start, started. One syllable, but now it's two. Suggest, suggested. So two syllables, now it's three. Interested, interested. Sometimes that's three syllables. Different people pronounce this one differently. I kind of do it more two syllables, interest. Some people say interest. So that could be 4 or 3 syllables. But that is the rule for T and D. Ted is dead. Of course, there's always exceptions. The exception here is adjectives. So if you see these kinds of words in the context of being an adjective, so if we look at this first word here, and it's spelled Learned, and you see this as a, you have to see the context to know how it's pronounced. So if you see it in a sentence where it is the simple past of the verb to learn, then you know it's pronounced learned with no extra syllable, because we have this in this rule, D sound with no extra syllable because it's an N, just like canned, ND. So learned. But if you're going to use it as an adjective, a learned professor, a learned scholar, a learned student, then you do it with 2 syllables. The same thing with these other words: wretched, beloved, naked, wicked, accursed, jagged, supposed. This is another one. Instead of, like, again, if it's in the simple past and you're saying he was supposed to take out the trash, he didn't, he was supposed to, then you don't add the extra syllable. But if you're saying something is not clear, it is the supposed, that was the supposed end to the story, but they changed it when they turned it into a film. So that's not exactly correct, but as an adjective, supposed. We also have blessed. That's another one, can be a verb, but if you see it, a blessed day, a blessed event, then you use that extra syllable. Aged can be that way too. Ragged, crooked. So when it's an adjective, then you add the ed, even if it has those other letters. These are I have to be honest, though, these are more rare, except for maybe like naked and crooked are more common, but the rest of them are pretty rare. You won't come across them very much, but just be aware adjectives do take that extra ed syllable. Then we have for plurals. So this is another mistake that is pretty common, is to add an extra syllable when there really isn't one with the es. So sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So if the verb or the noun, or yeah, this could be a verb as well, noun or verb, noun plural or simple present for third person. Some of them will be, we don't want to add that extra syllable. If the verb or if the noun ends in these with an E at the end. So B, D, F, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, U, R, T, T, H, G, U, E, V, W, Y. So words like robes, it's not robus, it's robes, blades, cakes, tails, homes, canes, pipes, critiques, mares, states, colleagues, loves, safes, clothes. So robe, one syllable, robes, stays the same, stays one syllable. Colleague, two syllables. Colleagues, it stays two syllables. Same with critique, critiques, two syllables. And you notice some of them take more of a Z sound and some take more of an S. So robes, blades, but cakes, it will just kind of happen. So these you do add an extra syllable. So for C, G, TCH, CH, S, SH, double S, X, and Z, you will add an extra syllable. So laces, languages, washes, dresses, phrases, boxes, buzzes, watches, teaches. So lace, one syllable, laces, two syllables. Language, two syllables. Languages, three syllables. So that does take the extra one. Of course, there's exceptions. These are words from other languages that you will see. And again, some of these are a little bit more uncommon, but just be aware that once in a while, if there is a word, you can kind of guess when it's foreign, that they will. I think cafe is the one that we're most familiar with. It's the most common. We have it in Russian and Kyrgyz and English, cafe, right? So this doesn't follow English pronunciation spelling rules because it's not an English word. Same with appliqué. That's also a French word. More, French. Mate, it's a drink. That's Spanish. Latte, segue, adobe. So that would be appliques, cafes, mores, mates, lattes, segues, and adobes. So these, again, a little bit maybe more on the higher level. Your university students might find them in readings, and that's how to pronounce them. There's, of course, other exceptions out there. Just as just an example, and that when something looks maybe like a foreign word, I started in my Kyrgyz language journey, Kyrgyz language learning journey starting to be a little bit better to notice when a word was maybe a Russian word instead of a Kyrgyz word. So you kind of can, I'm sure a lot of you have already gone through that of like, oh, this word seems, maybe it's a loan word. Maybe it's actually from another language. It seems like it's not an English word. And you can just look it up at that point. So teaching pronunciation, one of the great tricks I learned from, it's actually the Pimsleur method. If you want to get your hands on a course from the Pimsleur method, I really like it. It's just audio of practicing languages. So if you have a really long word, like pronunciation or imperceptible, it can be kind of daunting to do it all at once. I saw this helped me in learning Kyrgyz too, because with all the vowel harmony endings, all the end you add to them, the word becomes very long. So this helped me. So for something like pronunciation, first you look at how many syllables, pronunciation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where is the stress? On the fifth. Pronunciation. Okay, so we're going to start from the last syllable. We're going to say shun. So the teacher says shun. The students, everybody together says shun. Then the teacher says Asian. Then everybody says Asian. Then the teacher says Asian. Everybody Asian. Nunciation. Everybody nunciation. Pronunciation. Everybody pronunciation. So if you start from the end and just adding on to the beginning, it's much easier than starting at the beginning and trying to add on for some reason. I think because you start out and then you can kind of lose it. But if you start from the end and build it, then it can, you can go on forever. It's a great tool to have. Same thing, imperceptible, bull, tibble, septible, perceptible, imperceptible. Same kind of thing. So whatever, and especially if you have ones that, I don't know if people are working with specialty English, like medical or some scientific or IT, there might be words that are longer and more unfamiliar, things that we don't use in standard lower tier, first tier, or second tier words. They're more like maybe fourth tier. So this is a good way to drill that and to remember it for yourself too. You can use it on your own. You can use it in your classes or with a private student if you're tutoring. So I want to say English is one of the very rare languages. I'm not sure how many else are like this, that the many mistakes are in pronunciation are from using pronunciation based on phonetic rules we perceive in the written form. But English is not really phonetic. It's not very high on the phonetic spectrum. So that means that a lot of the words that we have look like they would be pronounced one way and they're pronounced another way. So there's a whole history lesson that we can go into about why this is. I'd be happy to give that history lesson. It's very interesting to me. If anybody would be interested in that, but it's too much to go into right now. But we need to address this in our classes by making sure that we include a lot of listening exercises from both native speakers with authentic materials and educational materials. So I've talked a bit before about what the pros and cons of using both of these are, what their purposes are, and when to use them. So remember, educational materials are specifically constructed for use by students. So people who study language acquisition, curriculum building, know what level of student is capable of doing what kinds of activities and mastering certain things. They will make these materials that are really targeted for that level of student and for the people, for the topics that is needed for their particular goals. So for example, if you're teaching a general English class, you're going to have kind of broad topics that cover a lot of things and don't have those, fourth tier words like we were talking about. If you're taking one of those courses, as I said, like medical English or IT or business English or test prep, English for academic purposes, those will be geared towards what those students need. So the listening materials that you have with your curriculum will be specifically geared towards what that class is and what that level is targeted as to cover. Authentic materials are things meant for consumption by native speakers. So TV shows, news reports, movies, music, political speeches, radio, broadcasting, books on tape, anything that you can listen to that is for not to learn another language, but just to get information or to entertainment from with your first language. So the pros and cons of both. So educational materials, it is made exactly for the level, geared towards the target. The con is that it's not always natural speech. Sometimes it's harder to get natural speech. A lot of times the pacing is slower so that then people really do talk so that the students can really understand it. The dialogues are kind of forced, but it is, again, something that the students are really going to understand everything if it's at the right level. Authentic materials, that is natural speech. That is, if you can consume and understand authentic materials, you are ready to go to a native English speaking country or to get a job where you're dealing with that language and you need, a high level of fluency. The problem is using them in the classroom. Maybe they are not geared towards the level. Maybe they do speak too fast. Maybe it's not, you can't find something that is really relevant to the topic that you need. So you need to use both, not in the same classroom, not in the same lesson in one day, maybe, but alternate. So try to use at least some kind of authentic material so that they're exposed to native speakers speaking in authentic, natural English, and they're hearing that pronunciation, they're hearing that cadence in a natural way, not forced, not theatrical, but also the educational materials, especially at the younger or the lower levels. You could be a beginner at any age. I was a beginner in Kyrgyz at age 38, so there you go. Yeah, the lower the level, the more clear and kind of planned out by these curriculum developers it needs to be. So when you are linking the terms that they're using and the vocabulary, the kinds of phrases in their written written, the books that they have, their written materials, and they are hearing the same kind of thing, they're really linking the sound to the spelling, and they understand, oh, even if this isn't spelled the way that it's spelled in this kind of way, like maybe cafe, right? It's not pronounced cafe, like safe. But they understand that they're hearing it, and that's the way that it's supposed to be pronounced. So that is a much more like consuming these things in the way that native speakers would, like listening to things and then reading things and hearing it and then drilling pronunciation, is much more beneficial than, as something was mentioned before about reading out loud. That's not really the way that we practice pronunciation or get good at it. If we always want to get better at something, right? So drilling. So at least 50% of the time in class, during a speaking lesson, for students to speak and practice their own pronunciation. So you don't want to be explaining things or giving examples the whole time. They need to practice it on their own so it feels natural. Also, it becomes muscle memory in the mouth. They actually need to practice with the mouth. So the teacher should be a guide to correct and drill. Keep teacher talk time to a minimum. So remember TTT. So we were told that the best teacher is just pointing at, things. They're not talking hardly ever. Point at the picture, listen, use gestures, use your facial expression, try to keep TTT to a minimum. Of course, drilling, you're going to say something so they can repeat it, but you want to talk as little as possible. So have students create their own materials using the rules and keep the materials on the wall. So what I did in my classes is we wrote out these words, like the Ted is dead words, the examples, and then the ones for these. And so they were on the wall. So anytime a student made a mistake, which is okay, just pointed to the wall and said, and then I just point to my ear. And if they didn't understand from that, I would say, is that how it's pronounced? And then they would correct themselves. So the more time that you give them to again, like in the feedback, give an opportunity for self-correction, and then let them figure out what the rule is, what mistake they made, and have them correct themselves. So, and having it on the wall is good, because even if they get bored and they're looking at the wall and they're not paying attention, that they're still looking at some of the rules, right? So you want to have English all over and I changed it up a bit sometimes, like we put different projects we'd have on the wall, so that there's always something visual for them to have. So the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, this is good for you to know. This is good for students. I would introduce this a little bit older so that you don't overwhelm with too young a students for that, and they might not really understand the concept of what we're doing with this. Your students well. I did work with some teachers who used it with 5th graders. I don't think I would be able to explain well enough to do that, but if it works for you, go ahead. What's great about this is that you can really very faithfully write out the way something is pronounced. And also you can look in the dictionary if you are reading and then know how something is pronounced. Of course, now we have the internet. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Google Translate and hear anything in English pronounced the correct way, but it's also a good thing to know when you're taking notes, and if you don't have your internet with you at the time, or you can't make noise on your phone or something in the library. But this is a helpful thing. So I know a lot of you are already using it, so I'm just saying it's an option. And the final thing to remember is accents are okay. Everyone has an accent, even me. I'm a native speaker, but I have an accent. People in England, in Australia, in India, in Ireland, in Canada, they speak different. Even in other parts of the United States, speak differently from me. And so to speak correctly does not necessarily mean speaking like a native. So it's okay to have an accent. There's a difference between speaking with an accent and speaking incorrectly. So there's incorrect pronunciation where the meaning has changed, where syllables are added. That is more like incorrect, but an accent, that's okay. We have a lot of especially in like American and British society, there's so many celebrities, actors, actresses, and singers who have who are not native speakers of English, and they have accents from other countries, from France, from Egypt, from India, from China. You know, there's a lot, and it's totally fine. So we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for just being correct and understand that everybody has an accent, and accents are great. We love them. We love to hear where people are from and to have that reflected. If somebody has a specific goal that they want to reduce their accent or they want to get rid of it for some reason, that's their personal goal. But that should not be your goal as a teacher of general English. Okay. Questions?
Thank you very much, Pamela.
Hello.
We have some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speakers speak quickly. Yes. So Kenjubu says it's difficult to catch the native speakers when they speak so quickly. I understand this. Definitely. And that's why the educational materials are really helpful, because they're using native speakers. They're just not using natural speech. They're not using authentic speech. It is made for the book. So starting with that is a good thing. And if you can use authentic materials that are clear, are at a pace where the students can understand, then go ahead and use them. I would say use authentic materials with supplementation. If it's really at a higher level, but you want them to be exposed to that, like I've mentioned before, like watching a film in English with English subtitles. So they're getting reading practice, but they're also listening for the cadence, for the sound of English, and they'll get some of it. So that could be a fun exercise. Always have a task to go with it. Don't just say, oh, we're watching a movie today. Like, you should have comprehension questions or discussion questions, that predictions, and then, have it be part of a lesson. But that's a great point to bring up. So what difficulties, this is a really great question, Guljan, thank you. What difficulties in pronouncing words between British English and American English? What should we pay attention to during teaching pronunciation? Okay, so British English and American English are both totally acceptable, totally correct, fine standards of teaching. The book that you have will either be more focused on one or the other. Some books are really trying to be called like international English, where they use things that are mostly used in both forms, but one will always be a little bit more towards one than the other. When you're teaching, just teach that one form. It doesn't matter which it is. And I've taught from American books. I've taught from British books. And when I teach from the British book, that's what I teach. The only time that I will say, oh, in the American version, they say this, or in the British, is if somebody asks me. But I won't give too much of that information, because it's just too confusing, especially at the lower levels. So if they bring it up, fine. But if you're a strong speaker in one, you're going to get the other. It's the same language. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just if you're teaching with one book, you're teaching one standard, just stick with it. Shouldn't be a problem. And then the pronunciation on the audio should be with that form. Just teach that form. Some of the very high levels of the books that I've taught, if I've taught a higher level course and it came with listening materials, I would I noticed that some of the listening had accents, had people with accents from India, from Central Africa, from Australia and Ireland. So that might be there like a little later. But at that point, they should already have a pretty solid base of one or the other. So just stick with one. Don't try to teach them all at the same time. What TV shows can you recommend? Oh, well, you know what? That depends on what the students are interested in. So, yeah, I mean, it depends what age, because some things are only appropriate for, certain ages. There's, I know on YouTube, there's like educational, like cartoons and things for younger students, and it really looks like an actual show to them. They don't really know the difference between like an authentic material and this is actually meant for education. Sesame Street is good for that, for young kids. That's educational, but for young learners to learn the alphabet, learn numbers, learn new words. It's for native kids, but it's great for learners as well. So Sesame Street, Sesame Street, Street, and there's a lot on YouTube. For older kids, there's different sitcoms that are funny, different TV shows. It's some of them might have things that are more for adults, so be a little bit careful for that. If you look at things from either the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, that those, and I think you can find clips from those on YouTube as well, or from the websites. So I can send Manas some of those names, or I can make a comment on this after it goes on Facebook. But good question. Appreciate. Oh, thank you, Isa. Yes, Isa. Oh, from backend. Yes, hi. Hello again. Thank you. TED Talks. Yes, TED Talks are great. I really like TED Talks. They use natural language and they're clear. So those are good for higher level students. The way that I use those is I put some questions, we talk about the topic, we give some predictions, we write the predictions on the board, I write some questions, or I ask the students for some questions about the topic, about what they want to know more. And then I ask if they haven't gotten all the questions that would be covered in the topic, I will add like maybe a couple more. And then instead of watching the entire thing all the way through, I'll stop it every like 3 to 5 minutes and say, what can we answer right now? Like kind of check in with them, make sure people aren't lost. Because if they get lost at 5 minutes, don't let them watch the rest of the 20 minutes. Check in what's going on, answer questions, clarify. Again, with the peer correction, that's great because some people will understand more than others. They can fill each other in on it and they help each other in the class. That's what you want. So yeah, TED Talks, stop it every 5 minutes to answer the questions and then have a discussion afterwards. And that is a fantastic lesson plan. That's kind of all you need. And then you give a production, like a discussion or a paper or like a written response about that. Good question. And yeah,
okay.
what topic?
Well, we have some questions left at the beginning of.
Oh, was there more in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was from Kenjebu and Gulbarchan.
Oh, which language are stress timed except English? Oh, Italian is, and Arabic, Danish. Those are just ones I can think of in my head that I've had some kind of exposure to. You know, there's languages all over. I think both Kyrgyz and Russian are. Salamatsuzba, right? Or is it? And Russian is too, right? Is stress times. There's a accent. There's a stress on. Is somebody gonna intonate? Yeah. I haven't studied Russian. I just know some words because of, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, but I think Kyrgyz and Russian are both stress timed. But yeah, it's start listening to other languages and see if you can notice if they are like the same or if they are like that. Intonation in English and intonation patterns. That's pretty specific. I'm not sure about that for a whole topic, but I'll look into that. I'll discuss with Manas about, we can add that to something. What's more important in English pronunciation, grammar, or speaking first? So we always want to get them speaking from the very beginning. So we don't ever want the student to leave a class without having spoken. So even if it's not perfect, we want to get them speaking something. Pronunciation and grammar, you want to do the kind of the minimal feedback. As I mentioned in the feedback session, you don't want to correct every single little thing. But I mean, to be a sophisticated speaker, everything should be, you know, you want to, it's not so much about prioritizing that pronunciation or grammar is more important. They're all important, but as far as the process of the lesson plan, make sure they are speaking. Make sure they are speaking as much as possible, getting that practice. And then slowly give more and more corrections until they master something, and then you move on. But good question. Yes.
We have two questions from Kenjebu.
Mm-hmm.
What differences are there in pronouncing the same word in British English and American English?
Oh, yeah, the differences in between. Oh, I see. There were more there. Okay. So it just depends on the word. So, for example, one of the differences is that English is a rhotic language, and American English is a rhotic, which means we pronounce our R's. And British is a non-rhotic. So if they if they have an R at the end of a vowel, they don't pronounce it. It disappears. So for example, I say water and they would say water, right? They don't pronounce the R at the end. That's just one example of pronunciation. Certain words are pronounced quite differently. So one of the, I'm trying to think of some of the classic examples of when we, I mean, of course, there's different words. They say lorry instead of truck. You know, they say boot instead of the trunk of the car. Like there's just certain things, but in context, I never studied British English. I talked with people from England. I watched movies and TV, and I used to watch a lot of British TV when I was little. And yeah, there's some funny British shows too, but and you just kind of pick up what those new words are, and the pronunciation just kind of follows. But I would say that's probably one of the biggest differences, is the rhoticness, is the R's. That's a good good question there. Connotation and denotation. Connotation is the associated meaning of the word, and denotation is the dictionary definition. So the way that you would, I remember this, denotation starts with D, that's dictionary, D, dictionary. Connotation, context, everything around it. So for example, I know in a lot of cultures, in a lot of languages, to call someone a donkey is an insult, right? So in English as well, in English, I know in Arabic, and in Kyrgyz it is, yes, to call someone a donkey, like they are kind of slow or stubborn or stupid or something. The denotation of donkey, if you look it in the dictionary, it is a four-legged animal that can be used as a beast of burden, can carry things. It lives in many different climates. But the connotation is an insult. If you say, he's a donkey, like that's a bad thing. So the meaning that kind of you use in your culture or in describing things in kind of a more specific way outside of just the dictionary definition is connotation, words in context within culture. Good question.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Mhm.
Pamela. One question.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to ask about the sentence has 7 meanings, yeah? One
Yeah.
sentence. So how can we realize or understand the meaning if you don't pay attention to the intonational stress
Yeah, so the
or face expression?
Yeah, so if the examples I gave right there, we're assuming it was kind of in a dialogue. So the dialogue will give you that context. So if you're talking about that he has the job and oh, he got the job, I don't think he should get that job. Like where are you talking? I'm not happy for him. Like you will understand when you are talking with someone back and forth. If it is written, you will use italics. So the word will be will be slanted and that will show stress. So in novels, in newspaper articles, if they are trying to stress one word and put the emphasis, they will use italics. So for example, I'll show you right now. Here, you can see my screen, yes?
Okay. Yes.
So italics?
You can do it, yeah.
So there we go. Now I just gave you the stress. Everyone has an accent. Mm-hmm. Everyone has an accent. It's stress. So when you're reading it, you'll know that. And when you're hearing it, it should be clear in what you're saying to the other people, what you're talking about. Good question.
Okay. Okay, we haven't left any more questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Pamela. It was very interesting and useful for us.
You're welcome, everybody. And you are coming to the end of the school year, yes?
Not yet.
In a week, 2 weeks, or?
I think May 15, maybe.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
May 15. Oh, okay.
After
so
May,
yeah,
yes.
maybe 3 more weeks. Okay, yeah. Great. Okay, so you still have some time with the students. Great. Well, thank you, Aigul, and everybody. And yeah, let Manas know what you would be interested in for next week, and he will let me know. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, dear teachers. Thank you very much for your participation. Orbağınızlar, жакшы Have a good night, Pamela.
Thank you.
Bye.
Jakşı kalınızlar.